Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for you all. So today we're going to be coming back to Swordsoul Tenyi, as I like to usually come back to this deck towards the top of the season. I really like laddering with this deck at the top of the season as well. It's honestly one of my favorite decks to ladder with if I'm looking to be like climbing up the ranked ladder, but doing so in a little bit more like, I guess, lax kind of a way, and I really say that honestly mostly because at this point I'm so familiar with this deck, right? Like, Swordsoul Tenyi has been a mainstay of this meta for literally since its release in Season 5, which is going on 8 months, almost a year of this deck being just a solid, consistent force in the meta, and really the only hit the decks had to take in that time is Longyuan de 2. Technically, there was also the banning of Halki Fibrax, of course, but Halk was definitely a nice addition to the Sword Souls, but not necessary by any means. The only really core hit this deck has taken is Longyuan to 2, and it's really even debatable whether Longyuan really needed to go to 2 or not. Swordsoul Tenyi, as I've said multiple times before, really does feel to me like, honestly, just about the most fair Tier 1 deck that not only that we have in Master Duel, but maybe even that I've played against ever in all my time playing. And I played TCG from Pharaoh's Servant up until mid 2016, so it's definitely been I've got quite a bit of experience, just in metas and with Tier 1 decks in general. So Swordsoul Tenyi, yeah, among all those, I've never seen such a Tier 1 deck that is such a consistent staying force, but is also feels so fair to play with or against. So as far as the build goes, normally we don't shake up this deck's build too much, and I really haven't changed it all that much, to be honest with you, but I have made a couple of updates that I wanted to try out. The main thing that I wanted to try putting into the deck are these Pot of Desires. So, Pot of Desires is a card that sees a fair amount of play in Swordsoul Tenyi, but it's not one that I've played in a little bit. I think the last time I was playing Pot of Desires was right before Longyuan got semi-limited. Desires is one of those cards that I go very much back and forth on, not just in Tenyi, but also, or Swordsoul Tenyi rather, but in pretty much any deck I've ever played it in rather. I always kind of just am the advantage is really nice, but I think we've all had those times where we get burned by banishing something we really need. That said, Swordsoul Tenyi is definitely one of those decks that you can typically get away with banishing as long as you've got at least one copy of one of these cards left in your deck, then you should be good, right? You don't typically need, multiple copies of that many cards in order for this deck to, function. Even then, if possible, sometimes I'll still wait on Pot of Desires to, play out a bit of my hand first. And then if that gets answered, once I pull everything I need out of the deck, then I'll go ahead and drop Desires, if it's not, needed right away to start my plays. So, otherwise, the build is pretty much exactly the same. As far as what got taken out, it was a bunch of flex spots, a bunch of tech cards, Valor was one of them. The Swordsoul Sacred Summit was another one, and then so was Harpy's Feather Duster. Yeah, Sacred Summit is going to be this spell card for those who aren't familiar. This card it's not bad by any means, but this is another card that kind of similarly to Desires I've gone back and forth on in Sword Souls. I've included it in the past and then taken it out, and then it was in the build for quite a while, but I also decided to take it out again. I tried it for quite a while. I tried it for I think a couple of seasons actually, but I really do think that ultimately this is mostly a win more card. This card does have applications, especially in the long game, but really most of the time that I'm using it's either in a later turn during the long game, in which Taia is also an equally viable top deck most of the time. It also has some applications on turn 1, but that's where it's a win more card. As far as actually using Sacred Summit on turn 1, if I don't naturally open the one copy, you're talking about searching it with Chi Xiao, but to search it off Chi Xiao, I'd already have to have the Longyuan and the Emergence and the Blackout, because I would search all those cards before I would grab a Sacred Summit on turn 1. So it just, yeah, it feels very win more. Plus, it's really only that great on turn 1 if you're exactly summoning Longyuan by pitching Taia, and you already have a way to normal summon Mo Ye. It's just so specific, when this card is at its best, that I also just decided it's probably not super duper worth it. Honestly, one of these imperms probably should be a Valor, especially because I'm playing Crossout. This deck is still, as it always has been, very susceptible to effects like Imperm and Valor, and I think I really probably should be playing 2 Imperm, 1 Valor. again, for the sake of the Crossout Designator. Plus, Failure being a tuner, like, doesn't really ever come up, but it can, you know, so. Let's see, anything else I want to cover with the build? There is Nibiru. This is really less to do with Swordsoul Tenyi specifically, more just in general. I've seen quite a few people in the comments, like, suggest taking Nibiru out of decks altogether for this format. I definitely understand why people would be inclined to do so with Runic and, I guess to a lesser extent, Labyrinth, you know, being so prevalent. But really, like, from what I can tell, from what I've encountered on my climb so far this season, which I did actually just yesterday make it up to Diamond from Platinum, I haven't really encountered any Labyrinths. There's mostly just Runics among those decks. To be fair, there's also, like, you know, Branded Despia and Flaunderies, like, right, those don't ever trigger enough summons for Nibiru. So, I don't fault people for wanting to take Nibiru out. I don't even think it's necessarily a bad idea, but I really like having it. It just feels like a good failsafe option. There are still many decks out there that will trigger Nibiru. It might not be the vast majority of, like, the top tier decks, but there are enough, you know, tier 3 and rogue decks that will trigger Nibiru, plus Swordsoul Tenyi as well. Plus, on top of that, like, you know, if you're going to be playing Maxx, I'm very much of the opinion that you need to have a threat to follow it up with. There have been times where I played Maxx without Nibiru in the past, and I Maxx my opponent, and then they just kind of keep going, and I realize, like, wait, I don't actually have anything I can draw that will stop them. So I think if you're going to be playing Maxx, it's important to be able to draw, like, the out, right? So I think it is important still to be playing Nibiru, in my opinion. Again, I don't think it belongs in every single deck, and I don't fault people for not playing in this format. I don't even think it's a bad call. I just personally think that Nibiru is still important enough, like, in general, that even if it's not as good as it's been in the past in this particular format, I still think it's worth playing personally, so. That is, I think, about all I've got to say. Extra deck has not changed since we took Halki Fibrax out. I'll be real with you all. This extra deck is very much solved. This deck in general is pretty much solved, right? Like, I've said that before. Let's be real, it is. But that doesn't make it any less interesting to play to me. So, alright, let's go ahead and break it down card by card, as we always do, and then we'll take a look at some games. We're playing 2 Tenyi Spirit Adhara, 3 Maxx, 3 Ash Blossom, and Joyous Spring, 1 Tenyi Spirit Shthana, 3 Swordsoul of Mo Ye, 2 Swordsoul of Taia, 2 Incredible Ecclesia, the Virtuous, 2 Swordsoul Strategist Longyuan, 2 Tenyi Spirit Vishuda, 3 Tenyi Spirit Ashuna, 1 Nibiru, the Primal being, 1 Archnemesis Protos, 3 Pot of Desires, 3 Swordsoul Emergence, 2 Call by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 2 Heavenly Dragon Circle, 3 Infinite Impermanence, and then 1 Swordsoul Blackout. That's going to round out the main deck. Extra deck will be Yazi, Evil of the Zing, 2 Baxia, Brightness of the Zing, 1 Draco, Berserker of the Tenyi, 1 Adamancipator, Risen Dragite, 2 Swordsoul Grandmaster Chi Xiao, 1 Chao Fang, Phantom of the Zing, 1 Baronne de Fluer, 1 Swordsoul Supreme Sovereign Cheng Ying, 1 Swordsoul Sinister Sovereign Qi Xing Longyuan, 3 Monk of the Tenyi, and then finally 1 Shaman of the Tenyi to round out the extra deck there. Alright, there is the list. Let's take a look at some games. So this first duel that we're going to be taking a look at will be against Marinesis. And, yeah, I don't know. I didn't really see anything too interesting, I guess, going on. I don't know. I was going to comment on the build, but then I was like, no, it's just a standard Marinesis build. Not really anything interesting or different going on in that regard. We're going to take the first turn, and as you can see, we just opened like a god hand here, more or less. Like, between Mo Ye, Longyuan, and then also Call by and Crossout, like, this is very much a do whatever you want hand. The only thing that could have made this hand possibly any better is if Ecclesia was something that could have discarded off Longyuan. Then I would have guaranteed gotten a Protos off this hand as well, but definitely won't complain about this hand regardless. So, let's go try to imperm the Mo Ye, but we've got the Crossout Designator for it. I really do think I should take out one of those imperms for a Veiler. I think having the variety for Crossout Designator targets is definitely worth it. And also just the variety of targets in general, right? Like, sometimes you need to negate on your opponent's turn, but you've already got cards up, and then Veiler is fine. You know, Imperm is a little bit better if you're going second. So we end up drawing in a Nibiru off of our Mo Ye. It's kind of an interesting, I say interesting, but really not that great of a draw. And yeah, because I didn't draw anything to discard off the Longyuan, I'm going to have to search Emergence and then use Emergence to grab in Ashuna to discard off the Longyuan. It's a shame. If I had gotten something again to actually pitch off this with either, you know, Ecclesia's draw or the Mo Ye draw, or, you know, if I'd opened with a card like instead of Ecclesia or drawn a card off of Mo Ye, then I could have used that Emergence to get a Protos, but whatever. You know, Chi plus Baron, while not like the best opening this deck can do by any means, is I think still more than fine. Especially when coupled with the call by. I never got the Nibiru in case things go like really wrong here. So, opponent's gonna start by activating Signet Mining, pitching Marines this wave. So, I wouldn't always negate this Signet Mining with Baronne de Fluer here. It really does depend on like what the exact situation is. In this particular situation where my opponent is already one card down because they already tried to use the Imperm, and obviously I countered it with the Crossout Exterminator, but because they only have 3 cards left in their hand, and they've also discarded Marine's Wave, which I consider to be, not that I play Marine's, but this seems like a pretty good card to just like pitch. So I don't know, I'm inclined to negate the Signet Mining with the Baron here. I wouldn't always do this, it really does depend on the matchup. As well as like the situation. Like if my opponent had a 4th card in hand, I'd probably just wait until they normal summoned and activated whatever Marine's effect. But yeah, like I said here, also because I've got Chi and Callby and Nibiru, I'm a little bit more willing to take a risk and try to leave my opponent with a dead hand here rather than let them search something. Also, the fact that the Signet might have required a discard definitely inclined me to want to negate it as well, just to get that 2-for-1 there. So. They do have a Marine's monster anyway. I suspected they probably did. But in response to both their effects, I'm actually going to use both of my responses as well. I'm going to Chi to negate the Blue Slug, and then I'm also going to call by and negate the, what is this, Sleepy Maiden. So between those two, I'm trying to just cut my opponent off from doing anything at all. The opponent does have a Call by the Grave, or a Crossout Exterminator rather, for my Call by the Grave. So they are going to get the Sleepy Maiden effect here, but that's... the Blue Tang, sorry, it's the Blue Tang's effect that they're going to get here, which is a random Excavate from Marine's. It's basically the like Salmon Great Foxy for this deck from what I can gather, so that's fine with me. Like if they want to just like have one search off of the top 3 cards of their deck, that's fine. The fact that they've only got one other card left aside from whatever they search, it's not very likely at all they're going to be able to hit, or they're going to be able to keep going. And sure enough, they get Marine's Mandarin, which is not yeah, they don't have 2 or more Marine's monsters, so they can't special summon it, which means they're not able to continue their combo. So yeah, that Baron was a little risky, but I think ultimately did pay off there. Again, I wouldn't always be inclined to negate a Signet Mining in that, or negate like a search card in that situation, but because they were 1 card down, because it was Signet Mining and they had a discarded card, because they already had other multiple responses and negates up, I decided to take a risk, and it ultimately paid off. So there is that game. Let's go and jump right into the next one. Alrighty, this next game here is going to be against the Mirror Match, although my opponent has some pretty interesting tech options. They're playing 2 Sacred Summit and 2 Blackout and the Metaphys Ragnarok, the level 4 Worm Tuner. So, very interesting. We're going second, and I kind of, once again, opened, like, disgustingly good. This time, I think I did out-open, like, just about the best possible going second hand I could. The only thing I might change here is, like, maybe instead of Ecclesia or Ashuna, putting, like, Ash Blossom. That'd be, like, my only possible fix to this hand. Otherwise, like, this is... And even then, Ecclesia is really good going second, so I don't even know about that. This is definitely what I would call an ideal opening hand. The opponent's going to start off with a Swordsoul Emergence. I'm just going to have to hope here that my Maxx resolves, because here's the thing. This is an ideal opening hand, but if this Maxx doesn't resolve, then... I don't know, I mean, this hand is still really good. Like, I'm not going to deny that, but then we're going to have to actually, like, play through our opponent. I mean, we're going to have to play through our opponent's stuff anyway, probably. Depends how far into Maxx they go, but... we'll just have to see here. They're going to reveal a Protos, and I'm going to fire off the Maxx, and they actually do not have a response ultimately, so we're definitely looking like, we're looking really good here. It's going to be smooth sailing from here on out. I even top deck in Nibiru, like as my first card off of Maxx. It's so good. They go for the Chi. I'm kind of expecting them to just go for the Blackout here. Try to give me as few draws as possible. The Desires, however, will definitely net me some more draws here. And sure enough, yeah, they search for the Blackout. If you're ever playing Sword Souls and you get Maxx, that's how you want to do it. Because they'll usually fire it off, obviously, in response to your first summon, your first Sword Soul token, usually Mo Ye. But if you go to Chi and search Blackout, like Chi plus Blackout, while not as good as even Chi plus Baron, is still like a pretty solid opening. It'll only give them 2 draws as well. So Yeah, my opponent played very well under Maxx. That's definitely how you want to be doing it. But even those few draws are, like, as you can see, already going to be like just more than enough for me. I even ripped Ash Blossom off the top of my deck. Like, I don't think I could have possibly drawn better in this game. Like, even, like I said, yeah, ripping Ash Blossom off the top of my deck to respond to my opponent's Maxx is truly gross here. So, obviously, I know they got a Blackout face down, so my first priority is going to be take care of this Chi Xiao without committing too much to the board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to special Ashuna, go for Monk, then I'm going to use Ashuna's effect to go for Vishuda. I'm going to have to go for another Monk with the Vishuda just to keep a normal monster on the board, but now my opponent has to use the Blackout now, or I'm just going to bounce their Chi Xiao with Vishuda. So they do use the Blackout now, which obviously I would as well. But I managed to get them to use it on just 2 Monk of the Tenyi. So also note that I waited to use my Pot of Desires until after I did that Ashuna play. That's because I'm playing 2 Vishuda. I didn't want to banish both of them off of Desires. I did actually end up banishing one of them off of Desires here, so and I actually banished both my Adhara. So yeah, this is, I don't know, sometimes it can be a little bit dicey using Desires, but it is about timing sometimes as well, I've noticed. So yeah, from here I'm just going to start off with the Baron, just get that online before I do anything else. I can even bounce this back row with the Vishuda as well. Or I guess I can't Baron here because I've already used the, what do you call it? Ashuna, that's the one. So yeah, I'm just gonna have to go for the Qixing Longyuan here, but all the same, I can still maybe get some draws in. The opponent does have an Imperm. I suspect this is probably the face down card I bounced, so that Vishuda ultimately didn't really end up doing too much, but, it's fine. So it's funny, here I actually do have like a little bit of a dilemma, because I don't think I can end the duel on this turn. But it's not really going to matter. My opponent's going to, I think, also just concede here anyway, yeah. Because they were at, what, 5,600, and I had 29 plus 18 is 47, so, like, yeah, I mean, they would have probably just lost to the Qixing Longyuan burn. Like, they're not even probably, they would have as soon as they tried to special or activate a spell or a trap card. That burn would just finish them off there. So yeah, it was a nice solid win there. Again, it was kind of the best possible going second hand you could ever get, so it was also kind of to be expected. Alright, let's just go ahead and get right into the next game here. Okay, for our next duel, we're going to be playing against a 60 card Thunder Dragon branded variant, which is actually a deck I've been kind of thinking about getting into. Yeah, ever since I crafted Grasses, I've been glancing at a bunch of 60-card decks, and Thunder Dragon is one of them that I've been thinking about. Alright, we're going to take the first turn here. This hand's, it's pretty good. Like, we get to start off with a Baron, which is nice. Yeah, anytime you get to Baron before you make your plays is pretty good, because Swordsouls will always trigger Nibiru with pretty much any of their plays. Any of their turn 1 plays anyway, so... I'm going to have 2 Emergence for Taia here. I guess I could have used Emergence for Mo Ye earlier. Like, that is definitely something I could have done. But, yeah, I think getting the Baron out first, if possible, is better. Like, we do miss out on a draw here, but I will sacrifice that draw in order to have an Omni Negate up for this literal exact reason. I actually totally forgot that I got Nibiru in this game. I didn't even remember that, but this is literally exactly why I am totally fine giving up a draw in order to run out the Baron before I do anything else, if possible. I even get to use the Adhara that I pitched to add the Longyuan back here, which I don't think is going to ultimately matter too much in the long run, but it's still just nice to have the option for next turn, right? Let's see, what do I have in my graveyard here? Yeah, nothing. I didn't think I had much, so yeah, I'll just ultimately bin an Ashuna and add the Blackout to set with the Imperm. So, yeah, we don't have the Baron Omni Negate, but, Nibiru, obviously a very good thing to use on. We still have Chi Xiao's Negate and Imperm and Blackout, and we also have the Ash Blossom as well, so. Opponent's going to start with Gold Starking for the Thunder Dragon Roar. I'm just going to Ash Blossom it, especially, again, in a 60-card, or with my opponent playing a 60-card deck. Again, if I can leave with my opponent with only what they opened with, and cut them off from searching, generally speaking, whatever they open with is going to be much worse than whatever they're trying to get, so, and, I still have a whole bunch of other disruption left. on top of that. So normally I might wait to Ash Blossom for something that might feel a little more impactful if I had less disruption options available on my board, but with this board, I feel totally fine ashing there. And again, also, being a 60 card deck, they're going to be less likely to have a, like, cohesive game plan with their opening hand than they would in, like, a 40 card deck. So, just a pretty easy, quick win there. Showing off why, you know, again, a lot of people, I think, will just run out the Emergence from Mo Ye because it's easy to fall into that pattern with your brain, right? Of like, oh, I Mo Ye, then I Longyuan, and then, but no. If you can Longyuan first, I would definitely advise doing it, even if it means you have to, like, Taia instead of Mo Ye off the Emergence there. So, we've got one more game to take a look at. Let's jump straight into it. And our final duel of this video is going to be against Runic, actually. So, this will be an interesting matchup, especially because I just took out the Harpy's Feather Duster, and I'm not really attacking anything specifically for Runic. I honestly don't feel the need to, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know. I will say this. I've kind of been thinking this for a while. Like, I kind of don't get the mass wave of Runic hate. Like, I understand being frustrated playing against Floodgate decks, but like, to me, playing against Runic, like having Runic in the meta doesn't feel any different than having Eldritch in the meta in the past, which people complained about Eldritch, to be fair, but I feel like not to the same extent people complained about Runic. I don't know, I don't get it, personally. Here's my advice, like, if you make posts like every day on the subreddit about how much you hate Runic, which I do see some people, like, there's some people who post frequently enough that I recognize usernames, like, you need to be spending your energy doing something more productive. Like, I'm just gonna say it. Like, I understand being frustrated playing against a certain deck, but we can only spend so much time of our day being frustrated. At some point we have to, like, move on with our lives. I don't know, that's just my 2 cents, so. Anyway, yeah, this opening hand is, like, it's actually pretty good. Okay, so this hand, I should have talked about it a little bit more, but I got into my mini rant there. But this hand, so I can start off with the Ashuna from Monk, that's going to trigger my Taia, right? It's going to make that live. And it might have looked weird to search the Blackout there. Like, you might think, like, well, wouldn't you want, like, you know, the Longyuan, because you don't have that yet or something like that. But I actually have the Heavenly Dragon Circle. And going for that Adhara, or that Tenyi off of the Ashuna, rather, was not just a means to set up the Taia in my hand, but it'll also allow me to set up a Chi plus Baronne plus Protos plus Blackout setup, which is pretty rare that you get all 4 of those in the same opening setup, but we are actually able to do it here. And we didn't even have to use a Swordsoul Emergence to do it, funnily enough. Heavenly Dragon Circle is just a very good card. I really like it. It's mainly used to play around like Valor and Imperm. If your opponent tries to Valor or Imperm the Mo Ye, you can use the Heavenly Dragon Circle to sack the Mo Ye and then add Shthana to your hand. Your effect will resolve because Mo Ye is not on the board. You'll still get your token, and then you can just special Shthana, go for Chi anyway. But this hand was another great example of another way in which you can use Heavenly Dragon Circle. You know, going for the Monk, using that to add the Longyuan, and then just, yeah, like I said, we're able to set up Chi plus Baronne plus Protos and Blackout. Like, all 4 of those on turn 1 is insane, and pretty rare, honestly, so. The opponent's going to start off with a Mono Iwado, which, you know, this is a very clear indication to me that they're playing Runic. This card is only played in Runic, so. It's also pretty clear to me they're trying to shut down, I think, primarily my Baronne. Though, to be fair, the Chi can also negate the Hugin here, so. I think, you know, either way, I want both these effects, obviously, so I'm just going to flip Imperm on their monster. Now, here, they're going to play Dimensional Fissure next. This, to me, is a very obvious bait. I think they're just trying to get me to use my Baronne's effect here. In any case, I'm actually not going to negate it. Like, that's totally fine for that to resolve, because it doesn't pose any active threat to me. Like, I thought to myself, even if this Dimensional Fissure sticks around through my opponent's turn into mine, it's probably not going to really affect me at all, so I'm fine just leaving it. Next, they'll Upstart. I'm obviously okay with that. The activation of Runic Fountain is also totally fine to me, but as soon as they activate their first Runic spell card, now I'm going to fire off my Swordsoul Blackout, and I'm actually not even using it on the Spirit monster they're trying to protect. I'm just going to hit their Dimensional Fissure and their Runic Fountain. With the Fountain gone, you know, that is just... Obviously, I don't have any means of getting advantage at this point, so making sure that I hit that. And then, again, I could have hit the Spirit monster, actually, to be fair, but I don't know, it's not going to bounce back anyway. I can just run over it. Even if it bounces back, whatever, I'll just attack directly. And the Dimensional Fissure might come up later. It might get annoying, so I'll just get rid of it now. They did set a face-down card before activating Card of Demise. I still have my Baronne negate, so I'll just use that on the Card of Demise. Now they're left with literally just their Spirit Monster and one Floodgate. It doesn't even matter if it's a Floodgate because I've already got my board established, and yeah, they just concede. So, I mean, to be fair, we did go first, but, and that obviously very much helps when you're playing against, like, a Floodgate-based deck, but, like, I don't know, I was a little bit weary about dropping Harpy's Feather Dust during this meta, but Swordsoul, to be fair, is one of those decks that has enough outs to back rows anyway, like Vishuda and Blackout, and Baron sometimes if you go first, like in this game. So, I thought I'd do fine without it. This game's proved, again, I did go first, but generally speaking, I think we're going to be fine without the Feather Duster. I don't personally feel the need to tech specifically against Runics. No Cosmic Cyclones for me. So, that's going to be it for this duel and these duels overall. So yeah, let's just go ahead and go to the outro now. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack. You'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation, you do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now. So without further ado, this is Xlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.